Show. My name is Joey, and this week I'm joined by Neil.
Hello.
And by Dom.
Hello there.
And by Laurie.
All right, mate.
So, it's been a little while. Well, actually, it's not been that long since we've last podcasted, but there's been about 50 games been played. And so we vowed that, for the sake of time, we are going to say that the Portsmouth game was insane, but good. The Gillingham game was sane, but I guess still good. Watford doesn't even really bear talking about too much. So we're going to focus on the Oxford United game, but we are going to do moments of the last 4 games. So I'm going to throw very slowly, to give him time to think of one, to Neil.
Yes, Joey.
For your moment of the last 4 games.
My moment of the last 4 games will be this one that I'm about to speak of now, from my face. Who scored the equaliser against Portsmouth?
Michael Rose?
Yeah, you know when he scored that equaliser against Portsmouth, that was amazing. Yeah. No, seriously, there's been some mental stuff going on. I mean, I can't believe it's only been like 2 weeks, but for us to do that with 9 men and for him to come back and we looked threatening with 9 men against them lot. Oh, I was watching it on iFollow, and it was just insane. Running around my living room, not believing that, because I was expecting us to go through the entire season, winning every game, not conceding a goal ever. That goal dispelled most of that, but the fact that we were still able to get something out of it was incredible. Really pleased with it.
It's been odd so far as well how many goals have occurred in these games. For a team so averse to providing goals, in the sense of scoring them or conceding them, the last 6 results have been 4-1, 2-0, 3-all, 1-all, 3-0 and 3-all.
We've lost our minds, haven't we?
Yeah. I haven't seen this many goals in games since... when was the last time we weren't playing at the Rico?
Yeah.
Right. Laurie, you go next.
Well, there's certain things that have happened in the last 24 hours that I'm not at liberty to speak about, but have been very big highlights in my Coventry life. But I would probably have to go for O'Hare smashing one just beyond the goal line on Saturday, because I took a visitor to the game this week for their first ever Coventry game, and to throw away a 2-goal lead after having been ahead, and then for O'Hare to do that after what was just a spectacular little cameo was just absolutely unbelievable. And especially because there'd been a fight in the away end between the away end and the home fans, and there was just it was just unbelievable how exactly what you want to happen does happen from the player who you think is going to do it. It was just ridiculous that it happened.
Dom?
Well, I know there's been some interesting league games, but I'm actually going to focus on the competition on everyone's lips, the Leasing.com trophy. It was just interesting being in the stands where there wasn't that many people or much of an atmosphere, and you just hear what the players are saying to each other, and just became fascinated by the Walsall's players' nicknames for each other, just like how unimaginative they were. So they had their left back Cameron Pring, he was Pringy, and their centre back Zach Jules was Julesy.
Nice. I watched most of it on iFollow, and I kept, even though Clive and Oggy were talking over the top of it, I kept waking up as if from a dream and going, "Oh, this is a competitive match," because it was the most heavily pre-season game I've ever seen. Not just because of the weird kind of stunted atmosphere, but just the pace of it and everything. Just felt like a game that 2 teams had been sent out on the pitch to kind of go, just don't die.
Yeah, it was a total preserve match, wasn't it? It was just all over.
Right, I'm going to go for... Last time we were talking, we talked to a reasonable extent about Jermaine Castanier, and we said he's very clearly going to be box office, and I think we'd probably said he's going to be the most box office player that we'd got on our books. And you do have to wonder whether it's more than one sort of former Coventry City player or current Coventry City player that listens to the podcast. And actually, there's someone else who was like, oh, we'll see about who's the box office player around here.
Check me out.
So is it? See, I mean, he got off pretty lightly because he was the first sending off that day. But Fankati Darbo, who it seems CWR have just agreed is called Fanky. I don't know if anybody else from listening
Frankie
to it on
or
iPhone.
Frankie.
Yeah, so I couldn't tell whether they were calling him Frankie. It sounded like Frankie, but I assumed it was my bad ears and that they were calling him Fanky. But even still, maybe they just know that's what he's called, but it's not his name, is it?
Well, I'm pretty sure he's not called Frantaki either. That's another one that's kind of. It's like, stop conjuring up new names and give him his actual name. That's just.
But it's a real shame, as well as it always is. By the way, I know that Paul's not been here very often this season, but it's just been a quirk. He hasn't gone anywhere. He's just been working and whatever else. We'll get him back. I know that Paul was fascinated by the second own goal, but that for me it was the first one that was an absolute work of art because it had got an element of car crash to it. In that, as soon as the ball came in and you saw where he was, you were like, "Oh, I don't like the look of this." And then as soon as it bounced, you just thought, oh God, no. There was no one really around him, and the finish was sublime, but it ended up in the back of the net. You were like, that's weird. That somehow seemed so inevitable and so avoidable at the same time. Yeah, it was a real work of art. So what's good, I guess, is that along with all of the goals and all of everything else, is that we're looking at kind of an interesting season to unfold for the rest of the season by the looks of it. None more so interesting than the last 2-3 all draws that we've had. But we're going to just focus on the one that happened most recently, which is a mad thing to say. But Laurie, what the hell happened?
What did the hell happen? It was kind of quite a dry game for the first half in some ways. Like we play a 4-3-3, but it very much looked to me like we were playing 4-1. 4-1 for most of the game because Gordon was just out there on his own with Westbrook doing his best to get up there, but largely next to Kelly and Shipley, with Kelly kind of dropping behind the pair of them. I actually, you know how rarely you pay attention to the other team? On this occasion, I couldn't help but pay attention to Henry and Woodburn, their two midfielders. Henry especially was a really good player, and he kind of did his best to get up the noses of the away end just by generally arguing with the linesman and being really good at football. They had these colossal centre-backs who were just gigantic and won almost everything against Godden, who didn't really have much of a chance. Other summaries of that first half, I thought Sam McCallum was really good, looked really tidy, and he seems to have shed the nerves that he had at the end of last season when he was thrown into the team. Jabello and Dabo down the right was really a bit of a comedy of errors that first half. But I really like Dabo of what I've seen of him. I haven't really seen much of Jabello yet, but they both just really were specialising in just kicking it out of play, or Jabello seems to have this habit of thinking he's way faster than he is.
Yes.
And doing that thing where he sees a man next to him, he's like, God, you don't know what you're in for. Kick and run.
You're not Henri, no.
Oh, wait, you're faster than me. And I haven't learned that even the third time I've done it. So that would happen a few times. But even still, we had the best of the first half We kept the ball a lot. Didn't really create much, but we were doing fine. Like, Hawula fluffed a few chances. Oxford weren't really in it. We gradually let them back into it. They created a few things. They just loved crossing. Absolutely. They could cross it all day. Their striker, I learnt through a very good Oxford blogger, this guy called Ox Blogger. Look him up. He writes a mean match report that, it pains me to say it, is extremely good. And their guy, Jamie Mackey.
When you say good, do you mean like Sky Blue's blog good, or like only season good?
I just mean bloody good. And Yeah, Jamie Mackie missed an absolute sitter. It was curled over by Henry. I might be wrong. And he was all alone. Everyone thought he was offside. I mean, everyone in the team. He obviously wasn't offside. And Jamie Mackie took it on the full and fluffed it. And that was the best chance of the first half, except for the one that we decided to turn into a goal. And Westbrook he was just having such a Westbrook performance, if I can say that. Because Westbrook does what Westbrook does. He is relatively tidy. He annoys you less than Shipley does, but does less interesting stuff than Shipley does as well, because he's less ambitious.
I was going to say, he's like the 2019 Shipley, despite the fact that there is a 2019 Shipley.
Yeah, he just doesn't, you can't really get... It's easier to get annoyed with him for me, because he's not putting himself on the line that much. And he argued his way into taking this free kick that Liam Kelly had won in a really clever journeyman way by doing a lovely little shimmy between two men and just winning a free kick in a great position. And I mean, what right does Westbrook have to be curling that into the bottom corner? It was amazing.
Have you seen the goal cam version of it?
I have watched that at your recommendation. Yes, I have.
So I thought that when I saw it, is that courtesy of Clive, is that the suggestion was, and Carl Baker used to do this an awful lot, and I got a tremendous amount of respect for it. It was like they'd spied that the wall was bad, and that they were just like, look, the answer here is to abuse the bad wall. When you look at it in the goal cam version of it, there's no massive, and bearing in mind that
maybe that's a fisheye lens from the floor, isn't it?
But the equally is that. So this is what I was going to go on to say, is that it's not the perfect version of the truth. But equally, it's not easy, is it? It's not like it's a fucking a gimme, because Baker's
really
basically
far out as well.
Yeah, really far out. Baker's were largely that he was able to toe punt it forward through an empty space that existed. But that this is very clear that he's still got to get it round. I think they could have been further over, but that he's still got a lot of work to do. No more so than due to the sheer distance out from goal that he was. Like you say, I think it's a really, really excellent goal. And it's 2 goals and 3 assists in however many games it is now.
And his first ever direct free kick that he's taken for us, I'm pretty sure. I don't recall him ever deciding to stand above one. Especially in that position, you had Shipley, who, while he's only scored one himself, is the free kick taker, isn't he, really? And there's one that when you get in that range, you're like, yeah, give it to Shippers, he'll do something with it. But just to step up quite confidently, considering his performances don't seem that confident, and to put it away was superb.
I just remember thinking, don't shoot from there.
Yeah.
It's just too far out. And then when it went in, I was like, oh my God, how bad was the wall? But then you look at it back and you're like, oh God, no, that's just a really great hit. Fair play to you. What did you think of him apart from the goal, Laurie?
Yeah, kind of more of the same. Just he was part of a solid midfield that was... And his job seemed to be, out of the 3 of them, him, Shipley and Kelly, to be the one to try and get up and support Godden. But I don't really think that's his natural fit, really. He doesn't really strike me as a Bayliss kind of figure who's naturally wanting to get up there and be in and amongst it. He just... Yeah, it just seemed unnatural. So I think that's maybe why he ends up dropping back and Godden gets so isolated, because... he doesn't really feel like that's where he wants to be in the game. And I'm perfectly content with him being in the side at the moment, especially with those numbers, although people are now getting notions on social media and saying things like his numbers are better than Bayliss's, therefore he's a better player than Bayliss, which I'm obviously not going to entertain as an opinion. But he's perfectly capable. But now that we've signed these extra midfielders, I'm equally as excited to see them in the team as I am to see him. He seems like a capable player. We've said things about him before about him being like an academy type player, and I don't think he's particularly soft or anything like that. He doesn't get pushed off the ball all the time, but yeah, I mean he's vanilla to me. He's not setting anything on fire.
I think there's an improvement to be had, isn't there, in that position? I think while he's doing his job, I just don't see it as a sustainable sort of player or position that he can sort of hold down for the rest of the season. It'll be difficult for me to say that if he continues to score free kicks from 30 yards, but I think there are options.
in the same as we've talked about Shipley, though, is that there's a level to which if you're putting up big numbers, you can afford to carry a player. So if you're a midfielder who's going to score 8 to 10 goals, that in itself is its function. And I know that I'm the chief for saying it should be system above, system uber alles. But outside of being like a Bielsa team or whatever it is, I don't think you can turn down a goal-scoring midfielder that sort of doesn't... Sebastian Larsson made a career out of being completely ineffective, but that being able to put the ball on a sixpence and scoring 7 or 8 goals a season. But the concern for me is that what we're looking at is statistics in microcosm, and that everyone's going, it's 2 goals and 3 assists. But if you stretch out his time playing, there's nothing to say that would carry on at all, is there? It might just be a quirk. I hope it does, bear in mind, but that I don't, if I'm honest, don't envisage it. The other thing is that when you're talking about sort of, the player that we need now and the player that we need in the future, Westbrook is very young with very few games behind him. There's nothing to say that he's not the player that we need. Well, there's nothing to say that just because he's not the player that we need now necessarily, that he wouldn't fill that role eventually, because he's got plenty of time to get into it, isn't it? So it's not an inherent criticism of him. It's just that we'd like to see someone with a bit more game time in the first team. Of the first team now that looks quite solid and competent, I suppose.
Can I very quickly just throw my hands up and once again support Jordan Shipley with all my heart and say that I think he's actually playing very well at the moment.
I do,
and I think he will be difficult to take out of the team, as unfashionable as he is as a player, and the fact that we brought in these players who supposedly better. I think he's earning his spot in a far different way to Westbrook at the moment, but he's doing really well.
Let me ring Ed and ask him what he.
Yes, I've said that while he's not on.
No, but I agree with you. I just think that but I think me, you, and Paul specifically have largely been behind Shipley anyway, haven't we? I think that I just always thought that it was quite natural for him to be a first teamer, especially playing more central. I believe in him, for want of a less emotional way of putting that. So Laurie, pick it up from there.
Yes, we went in 1-0 up. I imagine Carl Robinson was fuming and Robbins was pleasantly surprised. And then Oxford came out looking much better. I mean, they're a funny side, really. I mean, I'm sure Dom has much more insightful stuff to say about them than I do, but they just seem to rely on a couple of quite interesting flair players and then a pretty rigid system of just get it down the channels and get it in and hope for the best. I mean, that'll get you pretty far in this division. And they almost, if the game hadn't gone absolutely mental, it would have hinged on this moment, which was them hitting the post with this incredible long-range strike, which we then immediately broke with down the left-hand side. Zane held it up really well. Again, he does the right things at the right times. Like, it was a really important moment for him to hold the ball up and make the perfect decision, switching the play, and then Dabo, before he took his shirt off and put on an Oxford one, floated in a lovely cross, and Godden just nods in that beautiful header over the keeper.
It's a great goal. Godden's role in it as well is fantastic.
Oh, just fantastic, because he's involved the whole way through. Yeah. It really made me think, we've signed a player here. Like, he isn't just some fox in the box. He's intelligent. He sees where the game is going, and he knew it was the right time to get involved in the move and not remove himself from the possibility of finishing the move off. And he just comes out of nowhere. There are these 2 centre-backs. They think, sweet, we've got it all covered. We're on the penalty spot. And Dabo's cross looks just boring and it's perfect. Godden just smokes in out of nowhere. Yeah, it's brilliant. And he's suitably close to the away end to pile in on us, which was always good. That was when the fight kicked off as well, which really, really was excellent. I know I shouldn't endorse fighting in a football stadium, but
no, but
Oxford away, you do need a fight to spice things up, don't you?
Testosterone's up. You've just scored a goal on the counter-attack for a second where you were already wrongfully 1-0 up because of the balance of play. You go 2-0 up. It's a little bit like how drug addicts get worse and worse because you're chasing more of a high. Then you've got to start a fight. You've got to keep going and going, basically.
You could just see Mark Robbins just... Is there a more perfect situation for Robbins than already being a smash and grab 1-0 up to being 2 smash and grab 2-0 up and thinking, God, I'm a footballing genius at the moment.
Yeah.
And he was pretty pleased with himself. Luckily, it didn't last that long. They kind of scored this. It was a really good goal, but it kind of a bit of a mishmash and just a beautiful finish into the top corner. And suddenly you're like, oh, right, 2-1. We all know where this is going. We just drop back and back and back. And I got in a debate with someone about this because I accused Robbins of just doing this over the last 2 years. He loves to sit back on a lead. And someone said, well, we've gone ahead in loads of games this season, and how many late equalisers have we conceded? 0. And I thought, is that a good point? Like, that doesn't mean we're never, ever going to sit back on a lead again and concede. Sorry, I don't know, I'm entertaining.
No, you're absolutely
me.
So, I agree with you, because it's of all cultural references pinned back to The Simpsons for me, and this is the rock that keeps away tigers. Just because you don't score an equaliser because you've sat back a few times, it doesn't mean that it doesn't invite it into happening. And I just think that sometimes I just think the Gillingham game, which we're not talking about explicitly, but I think that's how that nearly ended up in being a draw. Just because they didn't score that equaliser doesn't mean that it was the right thing to do to sit back and let them come at us. Actually, it might have been cleverer to have killed that game off, and then are all dispirited and they can't do it. I think it's a really good point. I completely agree with you.
And you've just seen it happen so much over the last 18 months. I thought it was impossible to ignore. And yeah, they pile the pressure on. I can't stress quite how unpleasant an experience it was watching the game between being 2-1 down and soon being 2-all, because it was just insufferable. It was entertaining because we would just smash them on the break and lots of stuff was happening. We would lose the ball. Kelly would give it away on the edge of the box and hope for the best. Dabo would start going on some mad runs. He was kind of getting into things. Even Jabello was starting to play well. O'Hare came on.
Was he?
Who?
Jabello.
Well, I mean, he started to do fewer bad things and more passable things.
I'm not having to go at him because I don't think he had a terrible game, but I thought he didn't play particularly well. I think, and we'll come on to this after you're done, I thought Hawula really didn't pay himself.
Correct.
You carry on though, Laurie.
No, yeah, he was the invisible man again, as he likes to be. And I mentioned that in the blog, like he just seems to just be immune from criticism because of he scored 15 goals for us. And yeah, O'Hare came on, and almost as soon as O'Hare came on, we conceded the equaliser, which was worth dwelling on because it was just magical in so many ways. The deep cross, the lack of pressure, the bounce, and Dabo's instinct to curl it into the top corner off his instep, and almost to start not celebrating but bemoaning what he'd done.
So as well, the thing with it was that the way that it's taken looks classically like a player who's one-footed, who's used the wrong foot. But it's not. Do you know what I mean? The way that he hits it, it looks like a player who's desperate to use his correct foot, but it's the wrong foot to use. But actually, he hits it with his left foot, doesn't he? And at first I was like, I think I know what's happened there. And I've watched it back, I've gone, you could have used the foot that you would have liked to have used, and you'd have got it out past the right side of the... Why have you used your wrong... You're trying to score there. That's the only thing that could possibly have happened here. I've watched it so many times, I don't understand what's happened.
But it's the look of surprise afterwards. It's like,
everything
you have just done is leading towards you scoring this goal. So
you were looking at the top corner. You were
staring where you want to hit the ball.
Yeah, if anything, it would have been more normal for you to have celebrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Has no one given him a shout there, you wonder? I mean, obviously not, because...
Well, because I guess the shout is, don't worry about it. You've got acres of space.
Everyone's got this, guys. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. You only need to not score an own goal here for everything to be absolutely fine. Like, it's too big to put into a quick... You can't. It's not a man on, is it, I suppose?
His players really abandoned him, though. I forget how late that is as well. That's the 85th minute when he scores that.
Yeah, because that seemed like that was how the game would end when it happened, didn't it?
It really seems like game over there. And the next time he gets the ball after that, everyone's watching him so intently, wondering how is he going to deal with this situation? Like, you've just lost. Well, you haven't lost. Robbins has lost us the game, but you've been the vessel that has passed the drink of defeat to them. Anyway, luckily it didn't end like that. And O'Hare, who me and Neil have already exchanged notes on, looks like one hell of a player. And I can't even remember the build-up, to be honest. I couldn't take any notes on it because it was such rowdy delirium after scoring. He ends up, I think it's a pass from...
Shipley reverse ball.
Yeah.
Into his...
Yeah,
into
so
it,
McCallum came off for this Watson lad, who I didn't even know about, who was actually really tidy for the, 2 minutes he was on the pitch. And he was involved in the build-up. Shipley turns it around the corner, and before he knows it, O'Hare, who'd actually fluffed a chance 2 minutes before, Jabello, coming back into form, had slotted one across to him, and O'Hare kind of got smothered by the keeper and wasted it. But this time, just gets it out of his feet and absolutely batters it off the underside of the bar. Yeah, amazing moment. Really amazing moment. It was so much fun celebrating that goal.
Can I say it's one of the worst goals versus how obviously it should have been a goal chances that I've ever seen. Like, as soon as the ball rolled to him, I was like, wow, you've basically got the entire goal to aim at, and you're at a perfect middle distance of where you are in compared to the goal. The fact that it didn't go in more comprehensively, I thought he'd missed it at first.
It made it
that
hard.
might have been the worst miss I've ever seen.
But you know what? I was so
come to him at such a gentle
so
pace, and the keeper was.
Line.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, but either way, for me, is all he needs to do is just hit the back of the net. It didn't need to hit the underside of the bar. It was just you could have put that pretty much anywhere that you'd have wanted to. You didn't need to give us a heart attack thinking that it was going to get ruled out.
Yeah, I agree. But because where we were sat, it was so. Maybe this is what 66 was like, but it was so obviously over the line. There wasn't even a moment where everyone was like, that's a goal. It was
Lampard.
Everyone started celebrating, and it was Christ, Lampard, yeah.
Oh, that is bad, yeah.
So that was magic.
And that was it, wasn't it? Because that was so late on that there was no possible way that Oxford could...
Yeah, because I'm looking at the BBC website now, and it says they made a substitute in the 99th minute. So there was actually there was still another 8 minutes to go after that goal. So
Tanner Watson had a good 12 minutes on the pitch, didn't he?
Yeah, he's loving it. And yeah, Liam Kelly made his first major error of the season by just so uncharacteristically.
Can we talk about this? I know that we are.
I think that's the name of the podcast. Yeah.
Dom, have you seen that Liam Kelly slide in?
Yeah, it's just completely sort of out of character, and just sort of it just looked like he was sort of calmly chefing it out. And okay, I know Foster is a good player, but to give him that opportunity to just completely dart past him by diving in was just bizarre. It didn't seem like it was Kelly doing it. It's just crazy.
But did no one else? So I thought I saw exactly what Kelly saw, which was that he seemed to be far enough away from the ball and enough out of control that he never intended to slide in until he realises that he's got this window of opportunity where he can get the ball out rather than shepherd the player because he's got no chance for it. and that his reaction to take it round him is insanely quick. Like
that's literally what happened.
But his
isn't it?
recovery is unbelievable. That actually, I think a tired Liam Kelly thinks, actually, I've got the one-up on him here, and this is a simple opportunity to knock it out of play. And the guy's reactions to take it round him are lightning, and that it's a poor decision in retrospect. But if you're in the game, I just sort of think, I think I'd have done the same thing. I think I'd have gone, he can't get this, so I'm taking this out, and then we'll deal with the throw-in. And that the guy's reactions are so lightning that you'd be on the deck and you just think, how did this happen? So I don't think it's like a terrible... I think a lot of people have said, oh, that was a really bad mistake. But I think it was a mistake in the sense that in retrospect you'd go, oh yeah, I shouldn't have done that. But when you look at it, if you pause it at the point where he changes from shepherding to diving, I think if you look at it, you'd think, most of us would think, I could probably knock that out of play before he gets to it. But his just recovery is like mega, isn't it?
I don't think mistake is the word, like you say. It's not so much mistake. It's the judgment, and it's one of those where in the speed of the game, it's such a horrible judgment. Retrospect is amazing because in that point, anybody says just don't do anything rash, and I think that's kind of where the mad sliding tackle kind of in any sense feels rash, as much as it looked like at that point. And like you say, like it did look like he was going to win that, and as he was doing it, I was on board with it. I was like, yeah, finally, we're going to take this out and it's going to be the end of the game. And the guy just did him. It still doesn't stop it being frustrating when you think about the alternative of just maybe not chucking yourself in the last minute of the game. Because it's just a call. You can't do anything about it. He's made a call. He was millimetres away from it, but actually probably being a decent call. And, I mean... kind of has cost us, but I guess what's cost us more is I'm looking at the BBC website like Laurie, and I've got Dabo own goal 85 and 94 minutes here, which probably cost us a lot more than that specific moment. But it was a really difficult one. But nobody's destroying him or anything. I think people are quite easy and quick to jump on it and make really sort of fundamental judgments about a player, but not Liam Kelly. He's been great so far.
Yeah, he has. Laurie, anything you want to wrap up before we move on to the Blackpool preview?
No. All of that said, it was still such a good away game and just a brilliant game to be a witness of. It was magical football to watch, and I think everyone should go and read that Ox blogger's report of it, because he just captured just the ludicrousness of League One football sometimes, and at a time when we're watching football be ruined by VAR and the Premiership and television, that was just why you go and watch football, because it's ridiculously stupid. Like, there's loads of crap players, there's loads of good players, and it's just edge of your seat madness, and there was never a better advert for League One football than that.
You're talking like someone who doesn't want to see football forensically broken down to make sure that the absolute winner is cast rather than having entertainment. Is that how you see football, Laurie?
Exactly. I don't want football to be a game of Tetris. I want it to be a game of football. Pathetic. Where often there's mistakes, which are the funnest part of winning.
Okay.
Unless it's Frank Lampard.
Right, fair play. Right, Blackpool, Dom.
Yeah, so I suppose the big news story about Blackpool at the moment is that the Oystons are gone. They're definitely gone. There's no threat of them coming back. They're gone into the distance, and so the fans coming back to Blackpool. They got a new owner. They brought back Simon Grayson as manager, who took them to the Championship in his last spell in charge for going to Leeds, and they have started really well. I wasn't quite expecting it, just because Simon Grayson came into the club relatively late in the summer. Takeover was sort of finalised quite late as well, and it's quite weird sort of their recruitment this summer, because they began the summer with not a lot of money. They're still in administration, or something like in receivership, I think is the right term. So they didn't have a great deal of money, had the old manager in charge, and he was just sort of recruiting like normal. So they've signed a couple of players that they've already binned off just because they've just suddenly got a lot more money to spend, and a different manager with a different way of seeing things. And he thought perhaps there'd be a little bit of a transitional period, especially as last season they were just such a dour defensive team, And with fans coming back to the stadium, you'd expect them to want to try and be more attacking, and possibly that will cause a few problems where the team's just not set up to attack, and maybe they push forward a bit too much and leave gaps. But that just hasn't happened. They've got to a really good start. They've drawn their last 3 league games, but it's an unbeaten start, and they look a very solid and dangerous side away from home. There's a good balance now from the players they've recruited, just give them a little bit more attacking flair to add to that really solid defensive base. I think the number one player to look out for will be Sadiq Kaikai, who is quite simply just shouldn't be playing in League One. He had a very good loan spell with Shrewsbury here a couple of years ago. It's a Crystal Palace youngster who sort of ended up being caught between. Crystal Palace didn't really want to let him go, but they didn't really want to play him either. There wasn't really room for him in the side there, obviously, with like Zaha and Townsend and Benassi, who'd have had sort of quite a lot of competition for sort of wingers and tagging midfielders there. So he went to NAC Breda last season, which was the same club as Castaner.
Yeah.
And he was basically available on a free to someone. No championship side came in, so Blackpool were the ones to bring him in. He's just a very talented attacking midfielder, skillful, just a fun player to watch. He's got moments of magic in his locker, and he's sort of the kind of player who can carry a side to promotion into the division. And he's sort of surrounded by pace as well in Blackpool's attack. They've got Liam Feeney, who's been a bit of a journeyman over the past couple of years. He didn't have a great season last year, signing on a free, in and out the side. Wasn't doing a great deal, but he started the season in excellent form. He's got about 3 assists already. And he's not just this sort of quick winger running down blind alleys. There's intelligence to him. You can see sort of because he's got a little more experience, that he's thinking about what he's doing, and he's got quality with his delivery in the box. And they've also recently signed Sean Scannell, who I think everyone was impressed with when he played for Blackpool against us back in April, and gave McCallum a really, really tough time in that game. And that just adds more pace and trickery and counter-attacking that Blackpool have, above a solid base of having 2 really big, powerful, dominant centre-backs in Curtis Till and Ben Heneghan, who are both big threats and set pieces. And they also have an absolutely massive centre-forward in Armand Nondouye, who is about 6'5". He's just very tall and awkward to play with. And for much of his career, he's just been tall and awkward. A bit like Walsall striker last night, Elijah Adebayo. But he's added goals to his game. And Blackpool are a side set up to give him the delivery, whether that's from set pieces and out wide. And he's going to be really handful. He's sort of one of those proverbial unplayable players where if they really fancy it, there's not much you can do to stop a 6'5" striker. He's got a bit of pace on him as well. So I think this is going to be a very tough home game, mainly because Blackpool over the past 2 or 3 seasons have just had a mentality of we'll take the point in whatever situation, and we'll back ourselves to keep a clean sheet or maybe only concede 1 goal, and we'll just nick something, and that'll be that. And they've just added a little more flair on top of that. So I think they look well set to be at least a playoff side this season. They may be a side that could run into trouble if they've been put under pressure to break teams down. But this is going to be a tough game for us, I reckon.
Can we get the pronunciation of that name one more time for the tall striker?
Armand Nondouye.
So that's the level of sophistication that you get from this podcast. This is what happens when Paul's not here. Can you imagine what that would have been like in his mouth? It's gorgeous. Dom, you've done a lovely job. One with that preview, but that pronunciation of that name has really made my day. It's absolutely top class. I think that is an actual preview. This is not. This is a very boring base level sentiment, but I think it's shaping up to be the best game of this season so far.
In terms of
it's just in
excitement.
general. Yeah, just I think so naysayers amongst COV fans have kind of levelled the fact that we've not played, high-flying opposition so far this season. And I think that they are 1 goal scored ahead of us in terms of head-to-head, aren't they? And that I think this is a really good, interesting test of where we're at. But also, it's 2 teams that I don't think will necessarily just sit back or anything. I think it'll be a really good test of each other and the first proper sort of test of where we're at this season. Is that fair or is that bollocks?
Yeah, it's fair. It's just going to be hard to top 2 of our recent games for entertainment, isn't it? Regardless of how fair this game is. Like, if it's more interesting than Pompey or Oxford, then fair play. I'm sad I'm not going.
Yeah, I guess ultimately is that it's football. Really, you want less of kind of, I wonder who's the best here, so much as you do. Let's just see if these two teams can knock 10 balls out of each other. Okay, well, Dom, comprehensive as usual. That's fantastic. Right, anything else before we wrap things up? Laurie, where can they, the bloody listeners, where can they listen to your... fucking hell, let me start that again. Where can they read your review of the Oxford game?
You never normally ask me this, Jerry. That's very nice of you.
I think that's bollocks. I think I normally do, don't I?
You absolutely don't bother. You stopped bothering about 3 months ago.
Oh, did I? Okay.
It's called thelonelyseason.club. But if you want the really good one, go to @oxblogger. His is also much better.
And Dom, your sterling work as usual. Remind everyone.
It's sidewayssammy.com.
Neil, will you ever pick up a pen again?
Well, like Twitter. Find me on Twitter. Yeah.
Find him on Twitter. Anything to add before we wrap things up?
Nope.
That sounds like a no to me. If you want to get in touch, it's @NeilAmptyShow on Twitter, neilamptyshow@gmail.com. Keep your eyes peeled to the podcast feed on Friday morning because we've got something that we're chucking out as a little bit of an extra. But apart from that, it's up to me to say goodbye to and thank you to Laurie.
Cheers, mate.
Goodbye and thank you to Neil.
Thank you.
Goodbye and thank you to Dom.
Cheers.
And of course, to you, dear listener. Bye.